Time now is 7:38. Could your laundry be making you ill? We're not talking about the stress of doing the washing. Which,
let's face it, is stressful. Drying clothes on racks and radiators could lead to an increase in dust mites and mould spores in the home, according to research out today. 3/4 of households are thought to hold levels of moisture that could seriously weaken immune systems.
But with recent wet weather or no outside space to dry your laundry, going back to the old ways could be hard for some people.
No, it's not radar or a new-style television aerial. You fix it in your garden and turn the handle.
The rotary washing line was invented in the days when gardens and communal areas were full of drying laundry. But the weather has always posed a problem, and as our lifestyles have changed, so have our habits. Now this is more likely to be the scene in many houses, especially in winter, but it's contributing a lot of moisture to the air. In a survey, researchers found 75% of homes had high moisture levels, which would encourage dust mites. Bad news for those with a range of health problems. Ironically, older types of housing were built with airing cupboards or communal drying areas. Margaret's a regular user of the drying room in the basement of her 60s tower block.
Nice white sheets, out the dryer, onto the bed, and then you go. Lovely.
But all that's actually needed is a south-facing, well-ventilated space, and the researchers are calling on house builders to build more of these into new homes.
Well, joining us now, GP Dr. Rosemary Leonard, Josh Steiner from the Southway Housing Trust, which owns and manages a number of former council housing estates across South Manchester. And presumably, I mean, you advise people, do you, on or the properties, you try and design them in such a way to make them better to live in, and this falls in with that, doesn't it?
That's right. Well, all of our new builds, we show consideration for this, but a lot of our properties are 1920s and 30s. So it is an issue that we face. We have about 1,000 mould and condensation referrals each year. So a lot of it is lifestyle advice and guidance that we're giving to.
So, Dr. Rosemary, before we go into some of the practical things, I mean, what are the risks?
We've now got 1 in 5 children, school children with eczema, 1 in 11 school children with asthma. If you have high levels of moisture in your home, you're encouraging the growth of house dust mites. Now, I think most parents who've got kids with these allergic conditions are told about house dust mite by their GP, and people are spending a fortune on special anti-allergy covers, special hoovers. In fact, one of the simplest things you can do is actually reduce the moisture level in your home. And certainly exacerbations of asthma, breathing problems in the winter are much more common. And this has always been blamed on, well, it's colds and coughs. Actually, it's probably more to do with the fact that moisture levels in the home go up hugely in the winter. And these house dust mites just love it. Their optimum conditions for thriving are 60 to 75% humidity. And that's what you're getting if you're drying your clothes inside without any aeration, without any ventilation.
It just does sound extraordinary when you're saying, you know, doing your washing, drying your washing is making you ill. But that could be what is affecting some people.
Yes, and in fact, I mean, I must confess, GPs are guilty here, because we talk about house dust mite and we say sort of hoover across the top of your wardrobe, hoover your curtains.
Yes.
Generally, we forget to say ventilate your house. We talk about sort of obvious moulds in the corner of rooms, but in fact, just this overall moisture level, particularly in the winter months, like now, you know, when it's cold outside, you can't dry your clothes outside at the moment, it's too damp. So people are putting them on airers in front of radiators, the moisture in the house goes up, as does the house dust mite population.
Josh, give us some of your expertise. How do you ventilate the house? I mean, as Rosemary was saying there, it's cold now.
It is.
So you want to open the window, but you want to close the window because you want to stay warm, but you want the clothes to dry. So how do you balance these things out?
It is. It's a fine balance, and there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution because everyone's house is different. It's important to say as well that clothes drying isn't, you know, that clothes aren't the villains here. Cooking and bathing are also two huge moisture generators, the leading moisture generators. So it's about the 3 things really. It's about ventilation, keeping it warm inside, and also reducing moisture levels as best as you can.
So how do you do that then?
Well, you've got to think about what's generating moisture. So with cooking, you obviously put a lid on your saucepans, think about making sure the kitchen window's open or the extractor fan's going when you're cooking, keep the bathroom door closed. And then with drying clothes, it's making sure that you are putting them in a warm, well-ventilated room. making sure that the walls are warm and the windows are open.
Some people might just be thinking that, I'll tell you what we'll do, we'll whack the heat up really high, because A, that'll dry things, and B, it'll make the room drier. I mean, the heat will dry out the room, so even if you cause a lot of condensation, then it disappears.
If the water vapour hasn't got anywhere to go, it won't dry the room out. I mean, what I would say is if you've got a child who's got eczema or asthma, don't dry the clothing in their bedroom because you're encouraging mites and moulds. Dry the clothing somewhere else, in the kitchen where you've already got high moisture anyway.
Oh, there's so many problems with this because the ideal solution is to dry it outside, but we just simply don't have, many of us, places to dry outside. Are you making a difference in the housing that you're building to let people be able to do that?
Installing new drying equipment for people, so they've got new washing lines and rotary dryers, but unfortunately, especially in Manchester, we can't rely on the weather, so we do have to accept that people are going to be doing this inside and offer them the best advice as to how to do that.
I can't help but think there's probably a generation of people watching this who are thinking, we used to manage perfectly well before we had dryers,
tumble dryers,
and possibly before we had central heating as well, and somehow
Put
people managed to walk around in clothes that were dry.
Yeah, and also, I mean, as you were saying earlier, we probably wash our clothes an awful lot more than we used to. We're doing piles more washing.
Yes. Well,
are you suggesting that we don't wash our clothes?
No, I'm not. But I'm just saying it's contributing to
It's undoubtedly true that we have a hell of a lot more clothes, don't we now?
Do, yeah,
I mean,
significantly
we wash a lot more than we ever did.
Communal drying rooms is one answer, but I suspect a lot of people are either worried that their clothing's going to get pinched or that they don't want to see their neighbours to see what they're wearing underneath.
Yeah, now we're getting down to it. Aren't we? These are the real issues. Thank you both very much.
Thanks very much for your comments this morning. I'll just read out one. Alan says, the washing isn't making me ill, but the electricity bill for the tumble dryer
Because they use lots of power.
Huge amount.
Very much so, yeah. And we're trying to advise people, in the way that's going to help them, especially in the face of fuel poverty. Think about the things that are going to be best for your health, but also you've got to think about the energy bills at the same time.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you both very much.
Let's see, time now 7:45. You're watching Breakfast from BBC News. Our main stories this morning. Teachers